And as you already know, as a dancer, when we come to a certain after a few years of dancing, you don't necessarily need more information. It's more about revisiting things that you already know until you know.
And even like exchanging it with people. Like, I think that's why it's really important what you said. But it's like, you might already have information. Maybe it's like a step or a way you do something or anything really, but then it's like okay, this is why like traveling and going to events is so important. It's like I come in, I meet you, and there's like stuff that I already know you do it, but you do it completely different to me, and I'm like, oh, like tell me about why you do like that, and then you're like, oh, because of this, and then it's like the same thing that I already knew, it starts to develop and change. And you see, I was talking to a friend about this recently, but like even the way we do styles, it's like even now with the internet and everybody's a bit more connected, but it's still like, if you go to Paris, if you go to like Germany, if you go to all these different places, they have slightly different outlook on how things should be done, or the way, like if you go to Asia, maybe the way they look at hip hop is different from if you go to London or Paris, or you know what I mean? And I think it's like it's not anything new. Like, we're not inventing new things in different places. It's just the perspective or the creativity is like a different mindset. So it's like you said, like you don't need new stuff always. It's like, okay, I get some stuff, you get some stuff, we spend some time working on it. Then when we come together, it's like, oh, like what did we discover differently, or what did we create differently, which I think is really cool. And
to piggyback on this idea is one thing I kind of realize outside of dance in a way of teaching is that, for example, people who are really good at communicating their idea, what they're very good at is conceptualize. Okay. So basically they will come with an idea that you already know, but they will label it in a way that you've never heard of. Yeah. And then it's almost like when you hear it, you're like, oh, yo, that's smart, the way you come up with it. And then you kind of attach this idea to that person just because of that. Yeah. Even though it's not the one who created this idea. You see what I mean?
And it's also like, I find that like, that way of explaining things is how I find myself like teaching people who are already good at dance. Like if we teach somebody who's never learned popping or never learned hip hop, it's like, okay, we have a certain way to explain. We just show them steps and they copy and blah, blah, blah. But I think whenever I'm helping somebody that's already good and they just want to be better, it's like, it's really that. It's like, okay, like I have a friend who's a popper, and it's like, so a lot of times the way I will explain stuff to him, because he's younger than me and a little bit less experienced, but like the way I'll explain something, he'll look at someone like MT Pop or whoever, and he'll be like, I see that they're good, and I see that I'm not as good as them, but I don't know why I'm not as good as them. Like what I recognize good dance, but I don't recognize like what the steps are. So then it's like I take something from like what he's doing. Like I say, okay, watch this video of MT Pop. Now look at only this and look at it in this way. And then he's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I'm not teaching him anything. He already knew that thing was good, but it's just, if you phrase it in the right way or explain it in the right way, then it clicks. And it's way easier for the person to go, oh, okay, I know how to do that, And I think this is a lot of like the thing when you're, like sharing or exchanging ideas. It's like, yeah, like you said, just conceptualizing it in the right way,
Yeah, and also even I think we tend to undervalue the power of repetition. And I don't know why exactly, because maybe it's because we live also in a informational age where we've got information a lot and it's easy access, so maybe that's why. But over time we also realize, okay, there's like true power in repetition. So meaning hearing the same thing over and over again is good. It's very good. Even for example, going back to one of the things that I like doing now is whenever I read a book and I found it valuable, then I said, okay, there are certain books, they become part of my 1 year list, like once a year, I'm going to, read them again, because every time that I'm going to read it again, I will learn something new, from that book,
And I guess also it's like, depending on where you are in your life or what's going on, like the same message will mean different things, or you'll receive it in a different way, I guess.
Exactly. So the same thing with dance, like, at your level, when you're revisiting foundations, it's definitely not the same way than when you learn foundation at the beginning, you know. So you have the resources to capitalize on foundation much more now than before, you know. So yeah, I think this is why I think it's very important to just, you know, become good at repetition, I think.
100%. And it's really like recognizing that especially with dance and like the creative aspect, it's like the same thing. It's not even repetition, you know what I mean? Because it's it's like talking about I mean, I have this all the time actually, but like you do something at the beginning that you're like, okay, yeah, I think I get it, or maybe it's boring or something like that, and then you do other things, and then when you come back to it, it has a different place in your dance. Even if we're talking like a physical thing, right? Like let's say with hip hop, at the very beginning, I found it kind of like boring to like focus so much on like foundation and the bounce and all this type of thing. I was like, this is not like, I'm young, I'm like 18, 19. This is not, my message is not like, I do things the right way. My message is like, I want to be different and unique and whatever. And then it's also like a bit more boring stuff. It's a bit more mature. And I was like, I just want to do cool concepts with my hands, you know? And then now when I come back to it, or like when I got older and I come back to like the idea of the bounce stuff, like I already have my creativity and my style. So fitting like foundation into it for me is a little bit easier, because I'm like, I'm not starting again from the beginning and starting with this thing. I'm just fitting this core element back into my dance, and for me it kind of highlights and makes it better, the stuff that I was already creative with. But it's like I think it's like the different, and it's like I'm not learning any new foundation. It's just even in my own head, like when I train and I'm like, oh yeah, it's the same stuff that, like for example, because I never teach the way I dance. Like I always teach how it should be done, and I dance how I want to dance, if that makes sense. So if I was to teach a hip hop class, I wouldn't say like, don't do the bounce, just do whatever you want. I teach it how it's supposed to be, and then but when I break rules or whatever, and that's up to the judges to decide if it's right or not, you know. But I think so then when I go to train, I like do the stuff that I'm teaching, which is like the proper stuff. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this actually makes my dance cool and different and better, but it's the same stuff I already learned and I've been teaching it. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's not even repetition by the time you come around. It's actually new, like, or it creates new things, or it's really interesting. And it's even the same thing, like, it's like repetition, but with different people who you're exchanging with. So I can do like, where it might not be, let's say it might not be foundation, but let's say like, something like tutting or waves or something. It's like I can do a session training with you, I can do a session training with like a popper, a session training with a crumper, and it's all the same thing, but like it's new every time, you know what I mean? And it's like if I said, I did waving with Nikel last week, but there's another guy that wants to do waving, but no, I already did waving. It's like it's not the same thing each time. It's new. So you have to, I think it's like you really have to have that that mindset to be open to keep, like you said, repeating, but it's not repeating, because every time it's something new. You know what I mean?
I can definitely relate to this. And also there's one thing that you said that is I found very interesting, because you said that the fact that sometimes the way you're gonna be teaching is not necessarily the way you're gonna be dancing. And there's a saying, okay, I'm going to try and remember it perfectly. There's a saying, it goes like, I think it's, you teach for you. Yeah. So you teach for yourself and you practice for your student.
Oh, okay.
You see, so, and the first time I heard that, I felt like, oh yeah, but this is so true. Because the more I teach, the more I learn a lot about myself. And the more also I kind of understand even more what I'm doing. And we would think, you know, that's what happened when you practice. But when I practice, this is when I can affirm what I know so that I can teach it.
Oh, interesting.
You see what I mean? So I mean, I don't know exactly who said that, and I think I got it somewhere. It's not for me anyway, but it resonate with me till that day. That's why I wanted to kind of talk about it based on what you said, because really, like, for us, teaching, I think, is a really a good way of learning and getting better at our craft, in our dance as well. So for sure. So
and it's also like, I think for me, why that is really true is like why it's helped me. The more I've taught, the more it's taught me about dance, because it's like, I know a lot of dancers. I mean, we probably both do. I know a lot of dancers who are amazing, but they don't know why they're amazing. Like, I've had it's like so many times where, I mean, you go and take a workshop with somebody, or like ask them something, and it's like, they're such an amazing dancer, but then the workshop they give, you're like, really? Like, this is it? Or like they tell you something and you're like, really? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, like, you're so good, but they can't articulate why they're good or what they would do. They're just like, you just got to feel it more. I was like, and it's like, it doesn't really make sense. But I think when you have to teach what you do a lot, you learn to like articulate everything. It's like, if you have a student every week saying, it's like, okay, Nikhil, like, at this point in the battle, like if you go to an extra round with somebody, you always have another level to pull out. How? Why? And you're like, you can't just say, just do. Like, there's a reason. There's something you do, and you say, okay, what is it? What is it? And then the more you can like articulate it, the more you can really make it almost like a science. Like, when I go to an extra round, I think of this. I pull out this. I have moves that I didn't use, and I keep them. I keep my energy. You know, like there's different stuff, and but you never have to say that unless you teach.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it kind of forces you to
reverse engineering yourself.
Exactly.
You know, and
that's a great way to say it.
That by doing this on a regular basis, that's when you see the power in it for yourself as well. You know, and
because then you can learn from yourself.
Exactly. So that's why I think, like, this saying, I was like, okay, that's so true. And also it give me even more, motivation to keep on teaching as well, because I see the benefit of it, not only for the student, but also for myself to grow. Yeah.
I think it's such a good, like, it's hard because I guess in hip hop, we have a lot of this thing of like, we don't so much want, I don't know, maybe it's not the same in France, but like here it's like a lot like, we don't want people to teach too early. Like, if you just started learning popping like last week, and then you open a popping class, it's kind of like, maybe you're not the best person to teach that style. But it's hard because that skill is really important in like making good dancers and making good teachers. So I think even like when I teach stuff, it's really nice to be like, to let's say, I don't know, you teach a step or a concept or something, but then you say like, okay, help each other. Like, okay, go in partners, and you teach them how you're doing it, and you teach them how you're doing it. Because even that, it like, if they have to say it, they're like, oh wait, it's like, okay, it's this step, then this, oh no, wait, I don't know how to link them. Hold on, let me ask a question. And then you realize what you don't know when you try and teach it, because you're like, oh, there's holes. Like, there's things I never learned. Okay, wait, hold on, let me ask the question or find out. But it's really, it's a really good skill to do, but it's hard to, I guess, also to find the opportunities, because I think as I've got older, it's way easier to like find opportunities to teach. But, when you're a younger dancer, maybe you need to share stuff in order to like highlight what you don't know. But then it's hard because it's like, you can't really open a class if you don't have a big name or something. Nobody's asked you for workshops. So it's kind of like, you have to really like seek the opportunity to help other people, I guess.
Yeah. But back in Paris, what really helped me a lot is my teacher and mentor back then, he gave me pretty early the opportunity to teach. Okay. But it was kids. This is really kids.
Yeah.
And he told me, okay, I know Nikhil is gonna be a little bit annoying, sometimes to go teach kids. But if you stick to it, you will learn a lot from it. Because teaching kids, it's not about just teaching them dance. You need to you need to learn how to, you know, grab their attention from the beginning to the end. You need to be like you know, basically more than a dance teacher.
Yeah.
And he was right, because this process taught me a lot. So I think I did that for like 2 years, you know, teaching, you know, kids. And then he gradually gave me, you know, some other group of people to teach and things like that.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think that's one approach that can work even, you know, for someone who start teaching early.
That's true.
But also another thing is more like, I think just getting into the habit of creating awareness, you know, about ourselves. Because, for example, I started doing this very late in my dance journey, but at some point after every training, I would take my notebook and write.
Yeah,
you know, like just write about, you know, how I felt and what I did, and, you know, not necessarily to judge myself, but it's more about putting on paper clearly what I felt.
Yeah,
you know, and how I feel after that, you know, session. And this alone has like a tremendous power of it, you know, just to create awareness again about, you know, what you do and things like that. And this, you don't necessarily need to go and teach to do that, but just by writing on a regular basis about your dance, about your art, I think this alone can bring a lot of awareness. And then when you start talking about it, you have more clarity.
100%.
So I think that also can help.
And I think like a similar thing that I advise people, but like for similar reasons, but it's like filming yourself train, because it's like you can feel good but the rounds are terrible, and you can feel terrible but the rounds are amazing. And it's it's not always, you can't always trust your internal feeling of like how it's going to be viewed. And I think it's also important, like in the same way that you said about writing down, it's like, okay, you watch, everybody does this, like you train, you watch your rounds back, you say, oh, I don't like this round, I like this round, I don't like this round. But you never ask yourself, oh, you have to ask yourself why. It's like, okay, I don't like that round. Why do you like, don't just say I don't like it and move on. Like specifically what's wrong with it? Oh, I look tired. No, tell me like why, what movements make you look tired? Like, okay, so it's when I'm doing my hits, like my arm doesn't raise above my chest level ever. So it looks like my arms are okay, cool. So now we have like concrete things that you can work on. Is like, even when you're tired, remember, lift your arms, lift your energy up. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you just look at a round and say, don't like it, you're not really learning how to hone in on the specific parts that need work, either for yourself or when you teach. It's like if you teach, you're going to say, oh, you that round looks rubbish, but this is not a good teacher. Like he's like, tell me why, tell me what to do to fix it, you know. And it's like you said, it's creating the awareness, like of all the different little things. And like reverse engineering is like a perfect phrase for that. It's like you watch the round and you're like, okay, let me break this down. Let me figure out what small parts need to be fixed and do it again. And and also measuring progress. Like, did I improve? Like if you don't know what you didn't like or what was wrong, how can you watch around and say, oh, I'm getting better? It's like, what's better? You're like, I don't know. I'd like it more. It's not really good enough. Like you have to say, this is better, this feels better, this looks better, the space is whatever it is, you know. And
I mean, you see, like sometimes even some people, they pretty you know, structured in life, and they have like some sort of philosophic way of thinking about life and things like that. But then for some reason, when it's come to dance, they don't necessarily apply the same principle that they already have, you know, and they either most of the time complicated it, or maybe because it's not tangible, you know, what you feel. And then you're like, I just don't like what I'm doing, or I just don't like it. And like you said, there's almost never a why behind it. And I think and things that we are talking about, I think is things that are accessible to anyone, and most importantly at any level. So you can cultivate this even from the get-go, basically. You know, and I think the next generation of you know, dance teachers and things like that, people like this will have to, or maybe it would be good to consider more about, you know, the mindset aspect of dance as well as the technical aspect of it, you know, because at the end of the day, the technique, yes, you will, learn it, but we know for a fact that in the long run is the mindset that would determine,
100%.
where you're going.
And I think it's also like in something like, I don't know, maybe like sports or something like that, where let's say like running, it's like you kind of just have to do what the coach tells you. It's like run faster and you'll win. Like here's what to eat, here's how to train, here's just like do this. If you run faster than this time, you're going to be the world champion. Like in dance, it doesn't really work like that. It's like I mean, I don't want to speak for you. I know a lot of dancers who are so like hung up on doing everything the right way based on what one teacher told them or whoever told them, and it's like they never get anywhere. Because I think, from my opinion, is that like the little secret that we don't discuss in the dance scene is that it's like it's like a very small percentage about doing things right. The rest of the way is like your creativity, how you execute things. Like this can get you, for me, way further than just ticking every box and doing everything perfectly.
For sure.
Because we're not a sport, we're an art,
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's like with what you're saying about the mindset thing, it's like if I tell you, it's like, okay, how do you do hip hop like on paper? Okay, I can tell you, I could find out for you and list every single foundation move that's ever existed, and you could learn them all. You're still not going to beat many people.
Not
like
at all.
it doesn't mean, oh, you could be able to do them the best. You could have the most stamina. Like it doesn't mean you're going to win. And it's like, if you have that mindset to be like, here's how I want to dance, here's my style, here's the things that I want to push in the scene, I think these things are going to carry you more. Even like, it's like, it makes me think of a friend of mine. Do you know Valmira?
Valmira.
From The Cage?
Yeah, I mean, from Switzerland?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know her.
She told me this like years ago, and it always sticks in my head, but she said like, when people give you feedback, often it's how they want to see you dance and not how you can progress at how you want to dance. It's like they say, oh, you need to use more this. Use like for who? For you, I should use more that. But you didn't ask me what I want to like express. You know what I mean? And help me to achieve that. And I think that like mindset change of like, not just do what everyone tells you. It's like if you judge a battle or you are my teacher and I come to you, I'm not going to just say, how can I be better? I'm going to say like, I want to do more things like this. How can you help me to get there? You know what I mean? And I think this is, now I can do that because it's 15 years later and I'm more old and mature, But I think younger dancers, they really come to like everyone say, what's the key? What's the answer? How do I be perfect? And it's like, you have to already have a direction and then we can help you to get there. You know what I mean? Or you have to have this mindset of like, I have a way that I want to move or something I want to express or put into the world. It might be like, this was a lot of times my mentality was like, I know I'm going to lose a lot of battles, but I'm going to lose doing the things I want to do. You know what I mean? I might be able to win if I change my style and do what I know the judges are going to want, but I don't want that. I don't care about the wins. I just want to have my unique way of moving. If I lose everything, fine, but it's going to be how I want to be good,
But I think also the problem is that what's usually gets you to a good level at the beginning can be the exact same thing that make you stuck for the next 10 years.
Go on.
Because when you first started, you want to be the good student and you learn everything, and you learn to do things right. And at the beginning, this is a good approach because, you're fresh and you're learning and, But the problem with that is it's a creative game. Dance is a creative game, especially in the long run. So once you've learned the things that get you to a good level, let's say for the first 2 to 3 years, if you remain in that state of mind, then you're stuck.
This is so
so therefore you can't just learn and implement. At the beginning is good, but you have to learn, you implement, you learn, you implement, and then you realize, okay, at some point I need to start customizing. And this is when the whole, valley is for you, like, because now you understand, okay, now I can learn, I can implement, but I also know how to customize.
Yeah.
And over time you just keep on doing this over and over again, but unfortunately there is also, I would say, maybe a lack of courage.
Yeah.
Sometimes to say, you know what, okay, I respect what you learn, what you taught me, and it was helpful, but now, okay, I'm just gonna do me.
Do my You
see what I mean? And doing you is often difficult.
So it's like the hardest thing, but that's why that's why there's only a few people that are the best in the world, because it's really hard to do the things that are required to be good. I think one thing I always think as well is, like, for me it seems really clear, not so much how to do it, but just the fact that this exists, but that, like, you get all these like famous dancers, like the top level of our scene, right? And then you get a lot of people underneath them who copy their style or their way to dance. Like, I mean, the best example is the twins, but like, even, Boo Boo had this. There's a lot of people that started to dance like Boo Boo. Like, I could name, UK, every of these like dancers that had a name, you find other dancers that kind of copy their style. And it's like, I think the thing for me is that if you do that, you can get good, but you can never get better than them or on their level, because their style already exists. You know what I mean? It's like you can have 100 dancers that look like Boo Boo, but they'll never beat Boo Boo because he's Boo Boo. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. There's no space. And I think when you see these dancers who look completely different, at first everybody's like, and this is why he said it's hard to do it. It takes courage, because it's like, at first everybody's like, what the fuck is this? This is new. This is different. It doesn't make any sense. But I think what happens is, if you have this like this line of these are the best in the world, they try to go up like this. And then if they don't, and they go this way, make something new, then they rise to join them. You know what I mean? Like, I think let's say like someone like Gonzi, who is like, for me, is like, he has a really unique style, like his personality, his like mannerisms, everything is different. And it's like, there's no one that looks like him. So he's automatically the best at what he does. You know what I mean? It's like, there's no one that can be him. It's like, Alex is the same, like everybody that has a name. Like at first it's like, oh, this is completely different. Like with Alex, it was like very calm, where we see like lots of hype energy in battles. But then it's like, you see Alex and you're like, oh, nobody's really this calm when they battle. Nobody's really like low energy like this. Or Gonzi with his personality, nobody's really like this, like funny and like making silly faces and stuff. But then it's like, that thing that makes them like, oh, I've never seen this before, is the reason they're going to be the best in the world at that. And it's like, I think, like you said, at the beginning you have to learn all the stuff, and then it's finding that. It's like, what is the one thing that you can do, or the one way that you can dance, or thing that you can bring to the table that nobody else can bring. And then it's like, you're gonna be like a killer. Like,
sometimes I think about this, and I've got I said to myself, if I had a school, like I would need, obviously, time and years of experience to kind of know if it really works or not. But where I'm coming from is, I'm thinking, what if, for example, you have a dance school? Usually, to teach, you're gonna start straight from the foundations, right? For each style, you're gonna start from the foundation and teach that to the students, and then they will learn this way. But I'm thinking, what if for the first 3 years in the school, the only thing we teach those dancers is understanding their natural way of moving?
Ooh, that's good.
For the first 3 years. And then and then later on, I don't know if the school is for 5 years or 6 years or something like that. I would say 6 years, that would be good. Then the next 3 years, you start choosing the style that you want and learn the foundation of it. But before that, you never touch any foundation. reason why I'm saying this is because when we look at babies, the way they learn a language is so natural.
Yeah.
Right? Therefore, they have their voice first before understanding the grammar.
Yeah. Like
So
they want to say something and they learn the word in order to say what they already want to say.
Exactly. It's only when they get to school, then you add the structure to what they already know.
Yeah.
But because you add the structure later, they never overcomplicate, the process of talking.
Yeah.
And they already have that voice. And I think movements is pretty much the same,
This is
and I'm like,
perfect. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why, like, with Beyond the Move, I didn't want to teach a style in particular, even though if I'm going to do a battle, you will expect me to do a hip hop battle, right? But I said to myself, okay, you know what? I don't want to teach one style in particular. I just want to get you closer to your natural way of moving. If I can manage to do that, then at some point you don't necessarily need me anymore. Maybe you're gonna stay for the community, but at some point you can, just carry on, by yourself. So, and I think, unfortunately, it's not necessarily something that is taught a lot, because I think, people also tend to be like, okay, you have to do things like this because it was done this way, then this is the way you should be doing. And I think we need to find, the balance between that. Because if we do that, then we will have a better timing, to meet people, where they are.
Yeah.
And you will find more people giving you feedback based on your current situation rather than how they want you to dance, know? So
I think it's also like, it's like, I think the reason people like teach or share the dance in a way of like, you have to do it this way and this is how it's done, is because like they want, I guess, people to do things properly, or for the culture to kind of progress in the right way. My opinion is like, before you do that, you have to make people love the culture or the dance or anything, right? Like, I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the dance scene and the culture is like, when I first started, I didn't give a shit about doing anything the right way. Like, I cared about my friends. Like, I met friends at the very beginning, and it was like some of my best friends now that I met when I first started. I couldn't dance at all, but I met them through this. So it was about going to hang out with them, to see them, to make their friendship stronger. And it was about cool shit. Like, we would watch some of the battles, at when I first started off, we loved popping, right? I didn't even know what hip hop was. But it's like, we would watch like Jadawi battle, and we're like, I didn't care about, his boogaloo technique was perfect. Like, no, I was like, this guy's a fucking attitude. Like, he's like, we saw Salah and we're like, this guy's like the best. And Jadawi's like in his face telling him to piss off. I'm like, that guy's a gangster. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was nothing to do with the technique of the dance or the doing things right. It was like the energy, or Salah just doing some crazy shit that was like pulling a tissue. Like why has he got a tissue in a popping battle? I don't know, but I love him. Like, it's like these things that, or like, you go to a party with your friends and you start doing waves and all the girls are like, who's that guy? And it was like, this is what makes me want to love like dance, because of all the cool things that come with it, like the excitement, the feelings, the friendships. And then later I was like, okay, now I realize this thing that brought me so much like love, I want to like help people to do it properly and to learn, and I want to like study it. But I didn't want to study it on day one. I wanted to study it, like you said, like after a few years. And then I learned what was the things that I liked about the dance. I like concepts, I liked waves, I like whatever. Okay, now I'm going to find what style suits me and I'm going to study that thing. But if I don't, I think if new people walk in the door, it's like you when you teach a beginner's class, you never, I wouldn't go hard on foundations for the first beginner's class. It's like, here's day one of popping. Okay, we're going to do a Fresno for 7 hours. It's like, it's so boring. They're not going to come back. It's painful. It's not fun. You don't see a lot of progress quickly. If I'm teaching a beginner's class, the first time it's like waves, glides, like the fun shit. And then I'm like, if this is fun and you love it, come and experience more and then study. You know what I mean? And like you said, like, I think finding your way of moving, like you might look from the outside and be like, I want to be a popper, or I want to be a house dancer, or whatever. And it's like, how many, a lot of dancers who kind of we've been around a bit longer, we went through multiple styles. I'm sure you like tried other styles besides hip hop, and it's like even with choreo or whatever it might be, it's like you say, okay, I want to be a popper. No, I want to be a hip hop dancer. No, actually, I want to be a popper. Let me try house. And then it's like after a while, you find what suits you best. But if you just decide I'm a popper, it's like, you know the story of the ugly duckling?
No.
It's like a kid's story, like, and it's like this duck that thought that it was ugly the whole time, and it looks different from all the other ducks, and the other ducks make fun of it, and he said, why am I such an ugly duckling or whatever? And then it turns out that the duck is actually a swan, but he doesn't realize. So when he goes around the swans, he's like, oh, I'm a beautiful swan, I'm not a duck. And it's kind of like that with styles, you know. It's like you can be like, why am I a crappy hip-hop dancer? Why do I always lose? It's like, maybe you're not a hip-hop dancer, maybe you're a popper, but you don't know yet. Like you think, I'm a bad hip-hop dancer. Actually no, you're a good popper, but it just, you haven't tried the different things yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. But at the same time, I don't want to because there's an audience who's going to be watching and listening to what we are saying, and we are not undermined the importance of a foundation and all of that,
of course,
but it's more, I think it's also very important to find a balance between those two, because it's not necessarily always best to introduce the foundation at the beginning.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's like, I see it like almost like our sacred books. Like, you have the library and it's like the full of the sacred books, and I'm like, I'm not letting anybody in there. Like, you have to prove to me you love the shit first, and then you can come and see our sacred books. You know what I mean? It's
almost like, okay, I'm gonna test your retention rate first.
That's exactly it.
and then even better than that, once you stay long enough, what will happen is passion will ask for more.
Yes.
And then by yourself, you're going to start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. You see what I mean?
But you have to spark the fire first.
Exactly.
For me.
So I think that's something that is also, very important to mention, because for us, like, if we want to keep doing what we are doing, we want to keep it grow. Yeah. And in order to make it grow and keep it, becoming something, bigger and bigger and bigger, we also need to understand how to make it, attractive, not necessarily to sell out, but attractive to people who think that is unreachable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm so on your, like, I agree with you so much.
Because it's an industry like any others,
Yeah. I mean, this is like one of the biggest issues I have with the dance scene, and this is like why I'm doing this as well. This is like, I was even looking more into your stuff yesterday, and I was like, the more of stuff I watch of yours or like listen to you, I'm like, man, I really like. I feel like you are really someone that I'm like, we have the same mission, just in different ways. But it's like I'm really on the same wavelength as you. But like, even to the extent of like, we want to talk about dancers getting paid more, and I have a friend who's always talking about why dance hasn't got like sponsorships or something, or like this type of thing, right? And I think for me it's really this, like, the more we keep dance as like a closed environment that only we know and care about, and it's really hard to get into, it takes away like our audiences, because it's like battles have a really small audience, because it's really hard to understand what the hell is going on if you're not from the scene. If you don't already know what all this stuff means, there's nobody explains it. Like, when was the last time we went to an event, a battle event, and they explained what the knockout stages were? They just say, okay, top 16 is these people. Okay, next round is these people. No one says, first, everybody's who goes in the pre-selection is going to get through to the top 16. Then they're going to battle in a knockout. Like, nobody explains that, because we already know. But if you're new to the event, maybe you go once, you say, I didn't really understand what the hell was going on, and then you leave. When ciphers happen, nobody's saying like, okay, now there's going to be a break. Like, you might see some ciphers going on. This is like, it's just little stuff like that where we're not really making it so accessible to the outside often.
Exactly.
And even like, I always have rants about this, but like about like the way that we set up the events. Like sometimes they're too long. Like it's really boring. Like especially like say prelims. Like I talk about Battle Bad a lot because I feel like they have a really great setup where one day is the prelims day, one day is the show day. So if you're a normal audience member and you're not a dancer, you don't have to go to the first day because it's a long day. There's a lot of people just going one after another. It's not really so exciting to watch unless you're a dancer. Day 2 is like they have the stage, they have everybody's dressed nice, like it's packed. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Battle Bad is growing like really big, because it's like they making it an enjoyable experience to come and watch, not just for as a dancer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's obviously there's a lot of room for improvement in our community, and I think I'm more excited about this than being negative about it.
Yeah.
And I love observing, you know, what is going on outside of dance to kind of bring it inside.
That's a great way to
And one
look at
thing
it too.
that I used to ask myself this is when I look at the Olympics, right? I used to think, why is someone who's running these games, they seems to be much more popular than someone who's doing like backflip and, you know, some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I've always been more interested about, you know, like gymnastic and people who are doing like some unbelievable things with their body.
Yeah.
And then you've got someone else who's just, I don't want to undermine this, but it's just running
in a straight line.
Exactly, in a straight line. And it's just running faster than I could ever run. Then I understood something, and I realized that, okay, the reason why this has much more popularity is because it's much more relatable to the masses. Anyone can run.
Yeah.
But most people, when they watch someone doing backflip and things like that, most people will say, I can't do that. I will never do that.
So you make a distance.
Exactly. And then you already create, you know, the separation.
Yeah.
So therefore for us, if we only show them, okay, the show aspect of dancing and don't necessarily find a way to kind of meet the masses to a different state of mind and make them understand, you know, things that are relatable to life and dance, then it's gonna be, you know, harder, for them to get
come
introduced.
I think also my thing that I would add to that as well is that I think the reason why the running might be more like popular than something like dance is because it's easy to understand what like how somebody wins or loses. Like if you look at running, you say, okay, all I need to know is that the first person to cross that line wins. Amazing, like I'm in. Like, but if it's you know, I've watched dance battles with my mum or like with people that don't dance, and they're like, how come that guy won? And I'm like, well, because of it. And they're like, but the other guy's way better. He's bigger, more explosive. Like he did cooler stuff. He looked stronger. Like let's say it's a breaking battle. He did like all these flares and he spun on his head, and the other guy didn't do anything really that exciting, but he won. And I'm like, well, yeah, because of this and this and this. And I explain everything. And okay. And then next round, that guy loses to somebody that does all the big explosive stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, but in this moment, that is more important because of the music. And it's just so hard to really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think.
And I also like the aspect of it, aspect of it as well, because it make it I think it make dance exclusive in a way as well, you know? So I really like that. But at the same time, we both know that when you are a dancer and you've been doing that for quite some time, dance is definitely your lifestyle. You know, is really part of your lifestyle. So therefore, if it's part of your lifestyle, therefore there is a lot of similarity to life in itself, you know? And just being able to kind of share this in a way that you almost like when you hear someone talking about dance, you could say, okay, yeah, but I've gone through the same thing as an accountant. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost like, you know, things like that. But for us, we sometimes kind of, maybe because we want to keep it in a bubble and things like that. But yeah, that's great. But at the same time, we are pretty much living the same struggle and the same thing as, you know, someone else as well. You know, things like, you know, difficulties at work. Yeah, you know,
we have that.
You know, having hard time with money, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's pretty much the same thing. So I think we also need to, you know, to just be aware of this and be okay with the fact that it's dense, it can be very exclusive and we like it this way, but also it's nothing very different to what you are living, you know. So,
yeah, and I think also if we look at like not in the sports context, but like, you know, if you go to a museum or something like that, a lot of the way that we connect with artists is through their story. Like we might see some paintings on the wall and we're like, okay, cool, and then you read the thing and you're like, okay, this guy was born in this time and this is what he went through and this is how he lived and this was the struggles, and then you're like, oh cool, like I connect with the artist a lot more when you know their personal story.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah,
you know, their personal story or the backstory and all of that. And even also to maybe I might, you know, change the subject.